Hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome. Sunday, January 31st, 2021. And if you're watching, a very good warm welcome to this Vegfest UK online series. We're going to be looking today at activism in general. And particularly this session today, this first session, it could be global grassroots vegan activism. Now, of course, we're just at the end of January here in the UK. 580,000 people signed up to try a plant-based diet for the first time, pretty much, or the second time this month. And in some parts of the world, that's been really big. Of course, in other parts of the world, not so big or not at all. So a very, of course, different time for many people across the globe because of the lockdown and the pandemic, and of course that's affecting not only all the countries differently, but of course individual grassroots vegan activism is in many ways very restricted right now. But of course, an opportunity to develop other forms of activism, and one of the beauties, of course, is this ability here with this online discussions that we can really connect with different countries, different communities, and especially ones that are a bit isolated or a little bit with less plant-based options or vegan activism. This is a terrific opportunity to create some strong bonds and some inspiration, some support, of course, importantly, some understanding to some of the blocks or some of the challenges or some of the obstacles that different cultures and different countries and different individuals within those countries and those systems face. So I'm very, very happy to be able to just take this very small opportunity, but in some ways very significant, because it does represent, in a tiny way, this fabulous, growing, global vegan activist community. And it's a real privilege to be able to just help in a tiny, tiny way piece together a bit of inspiration and a bit of guidance too, because I think the UK especially has had this wealth of activism for so long in the vegan and animal rights circles. And there's a lot of wisdom there, there's a lot of experience to share. And it's great to be able to put it out, and especially some of the history, some of the growth, some of the lessons learned, some of the good references, some good sources to use and share. And just because it's good fun, I love it. It's a good crack. Let's be honest. It's a good crack. So on that note, let's bring in our panel. So today we're going to be welcoming Nella from Athens. We're going to be welcoming Simo from Fes in Morocco. And we are going to be welcoming Roger from Dublin in Ireland. So good morning, everybody.
Hello. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to join you for this discussion on the grassroots.
Thanks, Nella, and good morning, Simo.
Hello, everyone. My warm greeting for all. I would appreciate your support for us in Morocco. Thank you so much, team, and all the team.
Thanks, Simo. And Roger, we've seen you before. Your hair's got a nice shade of pink today.
Okay.
Yeah, very nice. Very touching. Yeah. But yeah.
It must be my cruelty-free shampoo.
Oh, that's what it is. So, how are you doing today, Roger? You good?
Not too bad. How are you? Are you suffering from yesterday in Everton, I suppose?
Yeah, Everton were awful yesterday. I mean, I actually was doing the live streams yesterday, and Everton were playing on the television live against Newcastle. So I dipped in to catch in between the presentations, and I actually had to turn it off because it was such a shocking performance that it made me quite miserable. So, thanks for that, Roger. But actually, on that note, Everton Leeds next week. I mean, it's been so long since we've had Leeds in the Premiership. It'd be a real pleasure to see you again after, I don't know, we've got 30 years absence or something. It'd be great to be off to Ellen Road.
I think it was 16 actually, Tim, but I don't know. I'm not really a football fan anymore. But
there you go. Is that right? Okay, so Nella, Simo, excuse us for us. We just take the mickey out of each other over our respective football teams. Of course, Nella, football is very significant to me because it was in Athens at the Agios Nikolaos Stadium in 1971 that I went to my first football game. Panathinaikos, Everton. Oh my goodness. Absolutely, completely off the wall. Fabulous. Agios Nikolaos, 28,000, probably double that. Oh my goodness. Greek football, huh? Yeah.
Football is really big here. It's the favorite sport of Greeks.
Yeah. You're an Olympiacos supporter, right?
Yes.
So me too. Olympiacos.
Olympiacos fan.
Olympiacos, there's always Olympiacos. Simo, you got football in Morocco, of course, is huge, huh?
Do you know Hakim Ziyech, the best player now in Chelsea?
Oh, yeah?
London.
So,
it's Moroccan player.
So, guys, thanks for joining us. And Nella, I'm going to start with you just to ask you actually for a few minutes. I'm going to ask our panelists just to really tell us what's going on. Give us a little current snapshot into what's happening in your, animal rights, vegan circles. So, Nella, what's happening in Athens?
During the last couple of years, we've seen the grassroots growing in Greece, which is a very positive thing. There have been some great initiatives like the Vegan Life Festival and Vegan 2022 Greece. And there has also been an inclination for activists to move away from large organizations and create their own local groups, which is very empowering at this moment. All this was kind of impeded by the COVID situation and the restrictions. So it was a procedure that didn't actually complete it. But at this point, we have two different activist groups that are doing outreach in Athens and in several other cities. And we are hoping for more after COVID. There is this tendency for people to self-organize right now. And there is also being a symbiotic organic relationship between the festival, Vegan 22 Greece, and activist groups, which is really nice because it's great when you see all these different groups of people supporting each other.
I remember there was a gentleman who was organising events in Greece who came to our London event a few years ago. I met him, young guy, very dynamic, very on it. I can't remember his name, but he was organising, I think he had 4 or 5 vegan festivals in Greece going, is it?
I think it's free right now. It didn't happen this year because of COVID. It was organized by 3 or 4 activists, and at the time it seemed a huge undertaking, but it was very successful. Yeah. And it's very small if you compare it with Vegfest, of course, but for Greece it's quite big because it has a very good turnout, like 6,000 people visiting during the 2 days that last.
That's huge, huh? That's big.
And it was supported by activists that worked voluntarily, but also it supported activism by giving them free access. So we had outreach events during the festival and also the opportunity to make some money, to by selling our merchandise. So it really brought the community together. It was a very good initiative.
Fabulous. Okay, so Nella, thanks for that. So you found that the COVID is actually people have started doing their own thing, and there's been less of the nationals. People have moved away from the nationals. What sort of nationals do you have in Greece? What is the big?
We don't have nationals, but we had the big international groups.
Okay.
Like AAV, DXC, and for several reasons, people moved away from that and decided that creating local groups was a good idea. And I think it's very easy at this time to do your own thing, because we have access to the knowledge and expertise of activists in other countries, even of academics. So it's very easy to share resources and knowledge.
Yeah, so that's interesting. But would you say that the presence of those international groups maybe acted as a bit of like a catalyst? It sort of inspired people to do their own thing. So would you say that was a good thing, that the influence, like these international groups got people started, but then they thought, let's do our own thing. So it's like almost like a catalyst. Yeah, that's interesting.
That's true. That's true. Because some of them were problematic, to be honest. But the truth is that a large number of people decide to go active, to be active because of those organizations. So we reached a point where we had the AV chapter in Athens, for example, had 300 members, and almost 100 of them were present at every event. So we preserved this dynamic after moving away and deciding to do our own grassroots thing with two different groups, Liberanival and Truthpill. But the activists continue to be there. So that's true. This really helped at the beginning, especially in a country where we don't have a long history of animal rights activism.
Yeah, I think, when I see criticism of the other groups, there's many groups. None of them are perfect groups. They've all got something or other that probably think, that's I don't quite agree with that, but I agree with that. So, but what I like to see is people going, well, if I don't like that so much, that's okay. Let's do this. Let's do my own version. Let's just start up my own thing. And never mind about spending time saying how awful these lot are. Why don't we just do something really interesting and dynamic? And I think it's a really important principle at the moment to fill in the gaps, if you like. If you see an organisation that's doing something and you want to do something better, that's fine. And you can go off and you can do something and fill in the gaps.
As the grassroots grows, people have a chance to decide what they're going to stand for. For example, the consensus here was that we must move away from the only for the animals rhetoric and then move towards a more consistent anti-oppression stance. So it's not perfect. It is what's happening right now. It's not perfect. I will have a long way to go, but at least it's a start.
That's interesting. And I see this more and more as people moving towards more of an anti-oppression kind of, the whole thing, trying to get this whole thing. It's an evolving principle that, does seem to be taking hold. We see it sometimes when we talk to the AXR, the Animal Rebellion people. We have conversations with people all over the world. We've got people in Taiwan and people in Romania and people in Stockholm, We have people in France and in America and in Brazil, and it's just like you get this little snapshot, and more this especially the up and coming activists. It's like, this applies to everything here. These are principles of justice. Simo, you last year in 2020 did this most fantastic Vegfest Morocco online, huge event. Talk about different countries. I think you had 40 different countries represented from, activists all over the world. It was hugely inspiring and unique. So, congratulations. It was a fabulous effort. And I know you had a lot of support from volunteers and up-and-coming activists who put their time in for free. Did a fantastic job. What's happening at the moment in Fes? You're in Fes, right?
Yes, Fes.
So what's going on then?
So first of all, I would appreciate your support for this challenging time. Thank you so much for being there for us. It's mean more than I can say. So it's beyond of any description. This give us an urge to continue despite all these obstacles and the challenges we face it. So when it's come the privilege in culture in Morocco of meat or the law that we recognize the protection of animal rights. So first of all, I will to talk about the challenges or the obstacles. So it's summarized in two main points in Morocco. So the first point is Moroccan culture as divides the legitimacy of the Islamic religion, which is a permit of eating animal. It's considered the Islamic way. It's the best way to of mercy for animals. So here we can't. It's difficult for activists to play the compassion card to convince the community of veganism. So the environmental aspect health, it's easier to convince a community of veganism. The second point in Morocco, it's very difficult. So the Moroccan law, it stands to no law to protect animals from being tortured. Besides that, any protest is prohibited. So we can't do like anonymous for the voices or something like that because it's prohibited in Morocco. But we can do the best for the next years like that. So for these activities, we will work in Dublin in this year, 2021. The first project is called the MENA, Africa. It's a project with a partnership with several associations in MENA region like Palestine, Lebanon, Kuwait, Jordan, in Arabic language for to raise awareness of climate change, animal rights, plant-based diet, because Arabic language we don't have any content like English or French or Spanish, because we don't have any content in Arabic word. We will work it for this project with all associations. So the second activities we will work on is hosting the Moroccan celebrity wherever, vegan or vegetarian, but in order to take advantage for numbers of followers in Instagram, Facebook, to raise awareness about veganism and animal rights for their followers. So this series will be in Arabic and French and English. So we will work in next April. So second activities we were working, it's weekly stories about vegan people to tell about how plant-based become a change, has changed and become science vegan. So just articles with the picture, like articles in our website or page Facebook. So the third activity is creating a vegan guide that includes a vegan restaurant or restaurants with vegan option. Companies available and vegan companies available in Morocco. In addition to the information about the importance of the plant-based diet. So with the vegan guide will be in Arabic, French, and English, because in Morocco we talk with three languages: Moroccan and French. Half is people of Morocco talk with French language, and English, because we need to make this project international. So also we need to make a series of training session of volunteering for animal rights to create more activists in Morocco, animal rights activists. So also the most important, we will work in our association Veg Morocco, the draw law of animal rights, and presented each of political parties in Morocco. So if it's accepted by one of these parties, will maybe discuss in parliament in Morocco. So I know it's very difficult to create law animal rights, but we will try this challenge. The last one, Vegfest Morocco. I hope we will make it in Morocco, not online. This because we will meet each other, people to change it, exchange with team. I will invite you and Nella and Roger, you all in Morocco. Welcome to Morocco anytime, especially in Fes, my city. Fes is very beautiful city in Morocco. That's it. And finally, I am about to finish my work on my own website. It's moroccanvegan.org. The site will be in English and Arabic. It includes all my interviews, journalist talk, videos, YouTube channels, podcast. That's it. It will be the first vegan website in North Africa. So that's it. Thank you for being here.
Wow, that's Simo. That's really, you've got a lot going on there. Really interesting to hear. I mean, well, I didn't know that you are not allowed to do like any kind of protest, that's banned. So to be able to do like big food festival, bring people together to celebrate food and plant-based diet, lots of color and cultural, so it can be inclusive and aligned with culture, local culture. It's really important, it's really important. It kind of, it's what you call your foot in the door. You get your foot in the door. So you start something. But then, sure, you have the beginnings of an animal rights philosophy to sort of come through to this is a process that has been tried and tested. It's a successful process to break down the barriers, to warm people to this idea And I know, Roger, you know from the history of animal rights that the importance of what Donald Watson called ripening people to this idea. It takes time. So to get people interested in one plant-based meal is a really good big step. It's a big step. And you know, but to have a concept of animal rights philosophy that begins to take hold and is discussed and begins to enter people's language and thinking, that's a really, you know, I'm really excited to hear you're doing a live Vegfest Morocco, but also disappointed to hear that there's no online Vegfest Morocco, because it really was.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe you have to put a little bit of an online aspect to the live event to include all of us, because I don't think Roger's going to go to Morocco in a hurry somehow. And, you know, not unless you're going to cycle with Roger or row, maybe. But yeah. Well done, Simo. That's great. So you've got a new website. Is it MoroccanVegan.org?
MoroccanVegan.org.
That's it. So we can just run that across the bottom. I think we've got the right. Yeah. Is it available yet? Is it go live?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Same as when we go live on February 14th. We're going live with our new project, of which all of you know about, but no one's saying anything yet because we haven't told everybody. But you're going to go live. See, Valentine's Day, we're going live 14th of February. So that's amazing. Simo, well done. And well done to all of your volunteers.
Thank you so much.
Your support. So I mean, we find it really inspiring. I mean, honestly, you know, really. So, and we'll come back to some of the things, especially about, you know, some of the issues that you may face from your government, or maybe some of the help that the government start helping. I mean, Roger, we had an interesting discussion, didn't we, 2 weeks ago, because suddenly in the UK, the Conservative Party, which is the right-wing party in the UK, announced 10 MPs are going vegan, and they're going to do veganuary, and they're going to try plant-based diets. And Roger and I had a lot of discussion about that. We had a little bit of a disagreement over that. It was also very healthy to disagree in a supportive, friendly environment. So, Roger, you're in Ireland. You're in Dublin. You're part of the Vegan Information Project, which is basically Grassroots, long running, probably 12 or 10 years now, 8-10 years, out on the streets of Dublin, talking to people about veganism, about plant-based diets, about issues of justice. You know, what's happening at the moment? It's shut down, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, it's quite inspiring to hear from the other participants, though. You know, about what's going on around the world. It's really interesting, all that. Yeah, I mean, I started with the Grassroots really in England, you know, and started really in Essex, and then moved to kind of the Liverpool, Manchester area, that kind of thing. So we talked about the 1970s there. But yeah, I mean, Ireland at the moment, there's quite a lot going on. In fact, there's a demo outside the Greyhound Stadium just yesterday. I think they were breaking a few kind of lockdown rules, but so are the people that are bringing all the greyhounds from all over Ireland, you know, to Dublin every week. So there's a lot going on in that sense. I think in terms of Ireland generally, we're quite lucky because there's no national groups, and so it's all kind of grassroots led really, and there's lots of groups, you know, VIP, Vigo, then there's a group called Nara, a group called Afar. There's lots of things going on in that sense, you know, some single issues, some vegan related stuff. So it's quite exciting. What we're really trying to do is bust out of Dublin, because a lot of it is focused
Dublin. Yeah.
Dublin. In the same way as if you think back to the 80s, everything was focused on the large cities. And I think people like Ronnie Lee would probably say that they still are. And so, you know, I've always been interested in trying to see if we can develop the grassroots and kind of try and analyze from a sociological point of view why it doesn't happen. I mean, I think it's something to do with finances, but I don't think that's the main thing. I think it's to do with mindsets. You know, I think people like to join something large and successful and big and go from there rather than kind of initiate it themselves. And so I think it'd be really interesting to explore the idea of some kind of support mechanism, you know, to see if we can grow the grassroots all over the place. You know, we always say it'd be good to have it everywhere, you know, and all the time, because the grassroots are really the kind of backbone of the movement, really.
I think as Nella said, that, you know, but that what we have seen in the last few years is these international groups. And I mean, certainly in our local area, there's two things that have really grown. One is grassroots vegan events. And, you know, when we started, there was maybe 3 or 4 events, even 7, 8 years ago, probably less than 10 events in the UK. And then suddenly woof. And then like last year or the year before, 2019, I think there was something like 300 vegan events. Some weekends you had 6, 7, 8 vegan events on. There was hundreds of vegan events, and there were some of them were quite small. They were just maybe 200 or 300 people and 10, 15 stalls, but then some would be a bit bigger, more like maybe 800, 1,000 people, 30, 40 stalls. But then some would be growing like Kevin's in Wolverhampton. Well, you know, like 5,000, 6,000 people over 2 days, maybe 150 stalls, loads of speakers and such like. And all of these events are like either free or very cheap to get into. And then that's been one big growth. But then the other big growth, of course, is what Nella pointed out, is the international. So your Anonymous for the Voiceless has had a lot of chapters in cities around and towns around, you know, the UK, certainly around where we live. You see one in Bristol, you see one in Bath, I think there's one in Cardiff, may well see one in, you know, Gloucester and Swindon. You know, there's everywhere, quite strong. So I wonder if people are moving more towards doing their own thing, but without, as in Greece, without those international groups.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that. I think, and I think there's been a critique about you know, why the grassroots needs some kind of international kind of supervision rather than doing their own thing. Which is now, for example, there's an Earthling group in Dublin, and they've experimented with, you know, not having masks and doing different things, you know, rather than kind of following some kind of script or model. And I always think that's a really good thing to happen, you know, for people to be very experimental, because it gives them new ideas. You know, the idea that they need to wear a particular uniform and says me with this one, you know, and say, you know, and all that, and kind of follow a kind of model. I think it'd be good to break out of that, you know, and also be linked more with stuff like the Hunt Saboteurs, like it used to be. And, you know, so there's lots of kind of different things that can go on. And then, you know, in relation to just the vegan stuff, you know, I think the model of getting these vegan festivals or, you know, town hall events, you know, like the old kind of jumble cell type thing, that would be really good. And you know, it doesn't have to be on a large scale, as you say. You know, you can have a real kind of varied thing. You know, the big massive ones like what you put on, Tim, down to just, you know, a little kind of town hall or a village hall, even with just a few kind of stalls, you know, a couple of people, you know, having a talk, and that's about it, you know.
I think it's interesting to see you mentioned Hunt Sabs. Of course, that's pretty much where you started your activism.
It was, yeah.
40 years ago, and it's also where, in many respects, the first noticeable animal rights group started in the UK. Well, no, that's not true. Of course not. But the current crop of the current groups, the Hunt Sabs started, I think, 1963, which was the year I was born. So, Roger, you would have been a bit older than that, or you're not. You would have been in nappies still. But, this activism has been going in the UK. And, of course, interesting, if you look at the history of the activism in the UK, the vivisection movement, the very strong anti-vivisection movement in the UK, goes back over 100 years. And in Scotland, you can see in Edinburgh, over 100 years ago, a charity formed of anti-vivisection that has now grown and developed into almost like a political. It's working on a political level. So it's not really working on an individual level, like helping people go vegan on an individual, but it's working against, trying to influence Scottish government, trying to make changes on systemic and institutional levels. But it started as a grassroots anti-vivisection campaign over 100 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, vivisection was a big deal in the 80s in particular. And now, of course, we've all moved to the idea of. This is interesting in the history of things. We're all moved to the idea of veganism being the moral baseline or the center of what we do. And one thing which is I keep talking about, and there's always a surprise for recent activists, is to find that wasn't always the case. In fact, it's really a 21st century thing, and so we've not really done that before. And so it's really good that the fact that we've now got veganism as a central part of our campaigning, rather than just a bunch of kind of unconnected single issues as it used to be. So that's pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm just going to ask you both, all three of you rather, about an interesting bit. We touched on how in the UK we're seeing, we just talked about how we're campaigning with the Scottish government. In the UK, we're seeing some changes. We've now got 7 MPs out of 635 who are vegan, which is, quite encouraging. We've got, as we mentioned, we've got even Conservative MPs trying a plant-based diet, talking about rights of animals now, and hopefully translate into subsidies for plant-based initiatives. This is what we want to see in the UK. The big political move, now we're out of Europe, sadly, is to see the subsidies shift from going to help out animal agriculture to promote, plant-based options. Things like oat milk and oat industry is growing in the UK. Lentils have been grown in the UK. Avocados been grown in the UK. There's a push now to get subsidies, to back crops like hemp, all the plant-based protein sources. So this is, it's obviously different from individual campaigning. It's government and institutions. So it's a different thing. But what I wanted to ask you all is how do you see what's happening with your sort of governments and authorities? Do you see a shift, Nella? I mean, is there encouragement from your governments? Do you think Greek government is becoming responsive, or the healthcare system, or is that an institutional change, or?
I'm afraid not. Sadly not, especially with this government. We have a right-wing government right now. And we had to protest fair subsidies, for example, during this last month, because the government decided that because of COVID, fair farmers needed more subsidies. So in a way, we are going backwards instead of moving forward. And thankfully, we have been able to protest that during COVID because we are not allowed to hold outreach events due to COVID restrictions, but we were allowed to protest. And we have been able to use some of these protests as outreach events to talk about subsidies with other citizens, but also to talk about all kinds of animal use. But institutional change is a dream for us here. It's a faraway dream.
Well, when I lived in Greece, I was there with the colonels. Back in 50 years ago, I lived in Greece. It was the colonels who were in charge. It was like what we called the colonels. It was a sort of coup. These army people had overthrown the Greek government, and the sort of colonels were running the country. It was pretty brutal regime. I remember it was pretty harsh. And I remember, of course, when Turkey invaded Cyprus and went to war, and Greece almost went to war with Turkey, and it was pretty. I remember it's a pretty protest. It's pretty dramatic. It's quite. I can imagine that the government could come down very hard, and make things very tough. But I just wonder if there's any kind of.
They do. I think. I'm sorry, didn't hear you.
I just wonder if there's any sort of foot in the door that your grassroots can be working on in that area.
There have been some efforts. We have an animal rights party now. They are not part of the parliament, of course, but it was created last year. We haven't seen their work yet, but we have been hopeful. The thing is that the number of vegans in Greece is very small. So in order to being able to bring change, we have to have more people on our side, more voters on our side. Otherwise, I don't see how we could be able to influence decisions, political decisions. So right now we are concentrating on advocacy and on outreach and on subsidies in some cases.
Thanks, Nella. That's really interesting because it gives us a little snapshot of just that. Very interesting to hear that you've actually got a fledgling animal rights party, political party forming. I mean, that's really interesting. And I agree, it's about, you have to get numbers, you have to work with numbers, you have to reach out and be quite broad and quite, but still have a clearly defined focus. So, Simo, you said, sorry, Nella, yeah, go on.
I just want to add something that this move towards local groups and the growth of the grassroots actually helps because during COVID, we had more flexibility because we made the rules. So, for example, we could not have outreach events, but we would be able to organize sit-ins and use them as outreach events, something that we could not do under the umbrella of an international organization who has strict rules of operation.
Yeah. Well, I think we've all got a few views on that, but I think we'll agree here. So autonomy is good. You do your own thing. You know rules. You make your own rules, but follow the guidance. It's good to have some theory, understanding of animal rights theory and benefits of plant-based diets, intersectional framework. These are really good tools. You can learn, educate yourself, discuss, and share and grow in an understanding, and I think then become more effective. Simo, just tell us about, I know we're going to look at your website in a minute, but what happens with the government in Morocco right now? Are you able to, apart from not protest, is there any support, do you think, at all for any kind of shift towards, plant-based, or for health, or for environment? Is there any kind of talk amongst politicians or institutions or governments there, or local governments?
So for protest, we can do any protest, but we don't talk about animal rights because lobbying in Morocco very, 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 very large in Morocco. So we can do like the plant-based, but very difficult for us. This we don't have lots of activists. We just small groups around of Morocco. So we need, first of all protests, we need to grow our movement in Morocco. Lots of activists, lots of activists in around Morocco, all cities. So we can, after that, we can do protests, animal rights, or something like that. Because now we just a small group in 2 or 3 cities in Morocco. So we need to be more large people. So for make a lot of protests, we need just for example, we need to make shocking. So, but government Morocco, we don't have any permission to do that.
Really, for you, you've got to grow. You've got to grow that, get more people beginning to eat plant-based, beginning to talk about these benefits, and also looking at an animal rights, the beginnings of an animal rights movement. So just, we're just going to share your website, actually. I think we've got your website pictures here, Simo. We're just going to see a little bit about your website here. So this is the website that you've created that is going to launch in next month, but in 2 or 3 weeks. And it's going to be in English, in Arabic, and in French, right? Yeah.
No French. Just English and
English and
Arabic. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, this looks an incredibly well designed and useful resource. It looks modern. It looks clean. I see the word justice. I see peace in there. I see lovely, lovely pictures and global. It looks fantastic. Looks fantastic, Simo. It's a really.
Thank you so much. So just for the Green Podcast, it's a series with activists in Arabic from Palestine, Kuwait, Jordan, Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, for more aware in MENA region.
Honestly, it's an expression in England we say, I tip my hat to you, sir. Tip my hat to you. That's absolutely fabulous. Absolutely fabulous looking resource. We'll definitely help share that. And, that it's involving all these countries, all these wonderful countries, all have got little fledgling, just beginning. Animal rights and vegan culture is growing. And this is just, like a real step forward, I would say, a really big step forward to help grow that, join people up. Simo, well done, mate. Honestly, I didn't know you were doing that. I'm really inspired. That's great news. Well done. So, Roger, you've got a little slideshow actually for us, I think, to just give us an idea. It's a really good visual idea about what you have been doing in Dublin recently.
Yeah, I thought I'd put something visual together so you can kind of like get some idea about what we're doing. Going back to Simo's website, that looks really good. I'm always inspired when I see vegan things which recognize that the core concept of veganism is justice. I'm always, you know, you picked up on that, Tim, and I really kind of you know, it's inspiring that, because, you know, it sometimes kind of gets lost, but, you know, essentially, you know, the people who started the vegan movement were about justice, peace, non-violence. You know, that was their core principles, you know, so it's good to see that reflected in a new website. Brilliant. Yeah, so okay, let's do I'm gonna feel like that guy from the British government doing the doing the COVID thing. So I'm going to say, Pete, next slide, please. Yeah. So okay. So so this is the beginning really of VIP. So Vegan Information Project. It started from Vegan Society of Ireland, Vegan Ireland, and that was kind of like a national group, but it only really worked like a small grassroots group. And so I wanted to kind of get bigger than that, actually physically bigger on the street. I remember going to Paris Vegan Day, and the organizer there, Deborah, was talking about how visibility was very important. So we thought, well, let's try and get big on the street, so we're very kind of visible. So we came up with this Vegan Information Day idea. So we started off 11 till 7 in a very famous part of Dublin called Temple Bar Square. Then we moved to 10 to 6. And then after that, we lost our spot in the square because they're redeveloping it. But now we're doing other things with a group called Vigo. So we do 1 to 6 on a Sunday, and then we do 4 to 7 on both Wednesday and Thursday. Thing is, of course, that obviously COVID is kind of shutting that down a little bit, but we'll see. Next one, please, Pete. This one's interesting because this is an early kind of video event. So this used to be called Pay to View. So this was before Earthlings, and it was also before AV even existed. So what you've got there is these little kind of boxes. In each box, there's a laptop. And so what used to happen is that we used to pay people to watch a video. That's what the Pay to View thing was all about. Started off in the States. So we started off by giving people €1 to watch a 5-minute film, because some jokers came along and said, can we watch it 50 times, please? You know, that kind of stuff. But it was interesting kind of concept. We kind of adapted it. Again, this idea of adaptation. We adapted it. So we started giving people a cupcake instead of money, and also gave them a choice of the kind of films that they could watch. So they could watch 5 minutes of graphic footage, which is what Pay to View was all about. Then we changed that. So we started to use clips like, there's a film that you'll know, Tim, by the Vegan Society, which features Benjamin Zephaniah. So we used to use that that little thing. So it was a good way of engaging people, because people would like sit there and watch things and then talk to us kind of afterwards, obviously. Next one, please, Pete. So this one's early sampling, the picture on the left. This is Temple Bar Square again. So we always did this kind of sampling of, you know, of vegan foods, plant-based items. To the right there, that's me being filmed for a student documentary, which was going on in Europe. Next one, please, Pete. Now, this one is a unique feature of the VIP as far as I know. So this is what we call the tea station. So essentially what we used to do is set up a little kind of cafe area. And what we found was that if people wanted to talk to people about veganism, if we sat them down with a free cup of tea, and then they kind of relaxed and asked all the questions. You know, we found that I always say that people are kind of vegan curious nowadays, and people seem to have all kinds of questions about veganism. Obviously, the usual stuff, where do you get protein from and all that, but they do have a lot of kind of questions. And so when you sit them down and they relax, they know then that they don't have to leave rapidly. You know, they can just sit there and actually ask the questions. So we've actually had a couple of activists who started by sitting down with us at the tea station and just talking all things vegan with a volunteer. And the bottom picture there is another film crew. That's a place called Dunleary, where the ferries used to go from. And people who have seen Carnage might recognize the top picture. That's Simon Amstel, the comedian, sat at our tea station for a couple of hours because he was just bringing in vegan aspects into his set at the time. So he wanted to get a bit of information. So that's a tea station. If anybody's got the chance of ever doing that kind of idea or trying it out, summer months obviously is the key to it. If you don't have gazebos and tents and stuff, but if you do try to do that, it really, really works because people do sit down and they ask us, all about it. Next one, please, Pete. So this is just a quick thing about the fact that we, being based in Ireland, we have to have lights. So I think the top one was at Christmas time with all those fairy lights. But we have lights to cater for the thing because we tend to do long events that go from the morning through to the evening because it's a big setup. So it takes quite a while to put up and take down. So it's only worth it to be there for a while. Next, please. The one at the top there or the left, that's Galway. So as I said, we're trying to burst out of Dublin a little bit. And the guy in the middle, Declan Bowens, he runs the Back into Daylight Animal Sanctuary. It's a vegan-run sanctuary, but he also runs a group called Vigo, Vegan Education on the Go. And that was set up precisely to do that. Develop the grassroots in Ireland. So he's trying to do that. He gives equipment out and he gives literature out to grassroots people all over the place and tries to get people to do things outside of Dublin because, obviously everything's centered in the capital is not so good. The bottom picture is really just the 4 to 7 event that we've got for twice a week for 3 hours. So it's a much smaller thing than the Sunday one. I'll show you a picture of the Sunday one in a while. So we've been to Galway. We've also done, Belfast, Kilkenny, Cork, Vegfest, Dublin Vegfest, all those kind of things. Next one, please. Okay, top right, left. That's when we did a stall at a Maccabee concert. You know Maccabee well, Tim, obviously, and see how tall the guy is. Is really incredible. The woman to his Wright is Bernie Wright. She's been a vegan since the 1980s, and she runs a FAR, Alliance for Animal Rights. The bottom one is a talk that we did at a college, and then the two ones at the right. This is from the VIP mini course. We did a mini course on social movements, so it was a weekly thing. Started off on World Vegan Day, or World Vegan Month, really, in 2013, and went right through into 2014 on a weekly kind of basis through the winter months. So that was quite good in the sense that I always feel that if activists get some sociological understanding of social movements, it actually helps them. And so this was a pretty good course. We thought we had guest speakers from all over the place. It was early days of Skype, but it kind of worked. Okay. Next one, please, Pete. This is school talks. So this is me giving a talk to, I think, 5-year-olds. We had a whole series of talks to 5-year-olds. Of course, obviously, you've got to be careful about what you say to them, But these were quite interesting. We used to have like a game, where the kids would guess the other animals and stuff. And once they guessed them, they would come to the front and hold up a picture of the other animal that they'd guessed. And then we would then start to move them around. So it would go from a game, and then we'd start saying, well, which ones of these do we eat, and which ones of these are pets, which ones of these are wildlife, that kind of stuff. And then we'd start to move them around and say, well, can't we put this one into this category? And they go, oh, no, we don't eat that one. And then you could talk about, how different cultures would do that kind of stuff, really get some kind of thinking. So those were quite successful, I think. Next one, please, Pete. This is Chalktivism, or the chalking thing, and the international thing that is going on now was inspired by what we did in Dublin, which was quite nice. So we started doing that again. I think this is like 2013, and so we take over a pavement. And the good thing about that, of course, is it washes off. So the police or the guards in Ireland, they don't seem to care too much about chalking. But obviously, if you do it on a building, that's another matter. Next one, please, Pete. The one at the top, that's Earthlings. So as I said, the Earthlings experience have got a Dublin branch, and they do all that kind of experimentation. You can see there's some people there without masks, some people with them, and then the chalking bit at the front. We kind of found that the chalking didn't quite work in the front in the end, because it kind of kept people away from us, whereas obviously you wanted people to come up to be able to see the screens. And what we did there was experiment with the actual content of the films that we'd show. So some of them were the usual kind of graphic stuff, but we also made a film of animal use in Ireland, which was a mixture of, well, it was just general standard stuff. But then also you would show some maybe just positive images of other animals. So that was pretty good. And then the bottom one, or the one to the right, that's Vegan Street. So that's a Vigo event, Vegan Education on the Go. But as you see, it goes all the way along the street. So right to the kind of far right of that picture, that there are banners going all the way along there. And that's not even the start of it. And also to the right of that, there are the bank pillars, and they're covered with posters as well. So we call it Vegan Street, or sometimes we call it the Vegan Tunnel of Love, because you kind of, if you walk through there, you can't miss it. You know, it's a really visible thing. And I think you've kind of seen part of that, at least, Tim. Next one, please, Pete. Okay, so this is what we've been able to do during COVID. So we've managed to do 3 of these. If it plays, it's supposed to be a video, this, folks, but we've had a bit of, here we go. So we've got a really good agreement with the people who supply Violife cheese, and when they get some short date ones, they give them to us to actually hand out free. And there's a guy in Ireland, this guy called Kieran. He's an Elvis impersonator, and we just started hooking up with him. We just turned up at the street at the same place, and the next minute he was giving out the cheese, and so we got Elvis helping giving out the cheese. What you see there is that was an actual double-decker bus that stopped because the driver and some of the passengers wanted a free sample. So it was really weird in that sense. So you had we've had taxis stopping with passengers to get a sample. We've had buses each time. I even had the police stopping, asking for samples. Now, obviously, if you just rush over and give them the sample, that's not as good as actually giving it to them at the stall, because then they'll stay and they'll talk. So it's a gentle way of planting seeds, really, because you're not asking for any money. We don't even have a collection box, you know. And so people come up. It's really funny. People come up and go, Is that free? And I say, yeah, it's totally free, no charge at all. And they go, how much is it? And I said, no, it's free. And it's really interesting, because some people just don't get the idea that you can have a free thing, you know. And even because the last one we did was about 5 days ago, and this guy came up and he said that he must have been in his 60s. He said it's the first time he's ever been offered anything free in his entire life. So, well, in that case, you better take 2, you know. So he took two chunks of cheese, but it is a good way of doing it. Going back to what you're saying about Veganuary, Tim, a lot of people were talking about Veganuary when they come to get the cheese. So, oh yeah, I'm trying to cut down, and oh yeah, I'm trying to do that Veganuary thing and this kind of stuff, and oh, I've seen it on the TV. So it is kind of getting into the consciousness in that sense. So there is that in that sense. You could say there can be a link between what goes on in the grassroots and what goes on elsewhere. But I tend to be a little bit wary of the New Year's resolution part of that, but that's another matter. Next one, please, Pete. We're coming to the end now, folks. So we get some celebrities in Dublin, as you can see, and so this was this was before the very first Dublin Vegfest, Tim, if you remember. Yeah. And so this is the kind of like the street part of it, you know, the fencing that you saw in the other thing. And then the guy on the right is a musician. I can't remember his name. What? You're muted, Tim.
No, Jack Baer is his name.
That's
I remember.
it.
He came over for Dublin Vegfest. Was it 2000? That's
15,
2015. Yeah, 2015 that was. And so Jack came over. We did a gig. We were doing a grassroots fundraiser. We raised, I think, about £4,000 or £5,000 for grassroots.
We had Pig Freud as well, which was
Pig Freud was doing his thing. And it's very successful. It's a very good format, that, and I think you're right there, Roger, about just planting seeds. You know, just getting out there and planting seeds. You never know. And I mean, Tom Reagan pointed about that. You know, a famous quote that I will completely misparaphrase, but about, you know, animal rights is complex. It takes time to establish the truth. And the way I've always understood that is it doesn't take time to establish the truth. Animal rights is the truth, but it takes time to establish that with people. People don't just automatically go, oh, you know, I never thought of that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Goodness me, yeah.
You mean in relation to sinking in, you mean, don't you? That's what you mean, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is a conversation we just got to keep having. And I think we, as activists, you know, we just basically, I would say, look, being consistent is important, but being kind and supportive, I would say, is more important. You know, I think you can promote plant-based diets, and we just encourage people to take one little tiny step towards a plant-based lifestyle, and maybe understanding veganism and ethical veganism. You know?
Yeah, well, I mean, what I'd say about that is that I'd agree with that. So long as the definition and the understanding of those two things being separate is part of it, which obviously is with a lot of people. So that it works in that sense. Kind of say, okay, well, you know, you've tried plant-based diet for veganuary, but how about veganism now? You know, that type of idea. You know.
Yeah, I think we should always just look to fill in the gaps. I don't think we should expect too much from people or from the campaigns. We should look to see the benefits and then see where we can help maybe fill in some gaps and try and help grow those whole, you know, things. And I do think that we spend way too much time putting each other down. I don't mean us particularly here, but generally in our movement, we do need to be more supportive for initiatives.
I think what you're saying about the planting seeds, Tim, is that it's kind of a little bit like advertising. You know, like we're out there 3 times a week, and so people see us quite a lot. In fact, I was off somewhere around the corner from here, and there was one of these people where they took people on tours of the local areas, and they're explaining what was going on. They're saying, well, we're just going on to Fleet Street now, and then we'll be on to Westmoreland Street where we are there. And he said, so we'll turn right and we'll go to the Bank of Ireland, and you'll see a big bunch of vegans. He said, we'll turn left there. And so we became part of the tour, you know. So it's all about visibility, you know. And people come back to us and say, oh, you know, we came up to you 3 months ago. We're vegan now. We've had entire families going vegan, you know, because they can come back. And I tell you another thing that is really interesting is when they know that it's there week after week. Sometimes we noticed this back in 2013, the first time. This woman appeared, and she was wanting to come up to the gazebo, but she was too nervous, and so she scuttled off. And she came back the second week, and she was looking again. And it wasn't until the 3rd week that she eventually came, and now she's a vegan. You know, but it was the fact that we were kind of there as a resource for her to check out, you know, which was really good. So I'm gonna leave you with a little film. I think it's about 2 minutes, and it gives you kind of like a film version of what you've seen already, including a nice bit where one of the things that we found when we're on the street is that often you'd find injured pigeons. So we ended up being a pigeon rescue thing as well. So next and final one then, please, Pete. That's Declan from the Back into Daylight Sanctuary. Yeah, so that, I think that's the end. And yeah, it's a really interesting way of doing things, you know, being on the street all the time, and you know, creating that presence, but also the size of it matters. You know, they do say size matters, and it is true in terms of visibility. You know, visibility is the key, I think.
I would agree with that. Actually, from my experience, when you have events that a lot of people are participating, so that there is high visibility, in a way, this attracts people, makes them curious. And then you have an opportunity to talk to them. And what I would like to see is events happening more often in Greece, because what you said, people knowing that you are there every week can make a real difference. It's not happening here at the moment. I hope it will happen after COVID. What has been happening here is a bit radical and unusual. Is Vegan 22 Greece, because the activist who is behind that thought that we need to make people go vegan for good, for life, but we also need people to be active. So she took the Vegan 22 structure and idea, and she adapted it to her vision and the Greek reality. And the thing is that people that go through these 3 weeks get all the assistance they need with practicalities to go vegan, but also they get all the theoretical knowledge they need to be advocates. I don't know if this is it happens at the moment, if it is happening anywhere else, but I think that it was a pretty radical idea to make people vegan and activists at the same time. It actually helped them frame veganism not as a diet or dietary choice, but as a philosophy that involves many things. And we are quite proud of that.
Well, it's really interesting too, and it's really good. And I know that Roger's previous partner in crime, Ronnie Lee, is very keen on sort of encouraging that same thing. Is that you should, it's not really just enough to be vegan; you have to be active too. And but what it is really important though is that we recognise there's so many different forms of activism, and whatever you feel you can do, that's what you should be focusing on. We're going to spend the rest of the day looking at one or two other aspects, especially creative activism. There's so much you can do with art, and with music, with performing arts, with visual arts, with writing, and even Roger, just your amateur video skills. They're really easy to do. Just film what you're up to and share it.
Hey, watch it, mate. Amateur. What's the matter with it?
You don't need lots of. What I mean by that is you don't need lots of technical ability, obviously, or financial, equipment. You can just. It's just a bit of an energy. It's just sharing it, putting it out there. Like you said, making it visible, making it accessible. So we're going to wrap up in a minute because we've got a day ahead of us. And I know you've been with us now for over an hour talking. Simo, I'm just going to ask you before we go: is there anything you would like to see a bit more of, perhaps, that could support your activities? What would you like to see from other people? Is there anything you would feel that could really help, in spreading this vegan message in your country? Oh, you're muted.
Could you repeat?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we're going to wrap up now. So just sort of the last sort of few thoughts, if there's anything you'd really like to see that perhaps other people can help with. I mean, one thing we'll obviously want to do is share your website. We want to put up what you're doing and share more what you're doing. I think translating into Arabic everything is a really important part of your work, isn't it? To make this accessible, more accessible. Is there anything you'd like us to do or see? Is there other things? What would you like? What would you like us to do? What would you like to see?
So for my translation in Arabic, so it's very simple for us, or we don't have any problem with translate in Arabic or English or French, because we are most common with this language in Morocco. So, but we have a problem with how can I get, for example, sponsors or grants for next project about Vegfest, because the Vegfest first edition with my own money, all hotels, food, etc. Because it's very difficult to find the sponsors or in Morocco. So, like a website, I make it with my own money also. Our association just we're membership to find we don't have any solution, just membership. That's it. But could you give me how to get a sponsorship for next project?
That's what I know that it is an issue. And Richard and I talked about this many times. The funding for Grassroots, and we're seeing a lot of funding within the vegan movement, but very little of it seems to be going to these kind of initiatives, So we see a lot of money wasted, a lot of money going to big multinational organizations, very little money filtering down to grassroots organizations. So it is a problem. Veg Fund do fund, they're available for grants up to maybe, I don't know, similar to £1,000. But it's a lot of work, and it's not much money. I mean, £1,000 doesn't go that far. But it's about the only one, Veg Funds, and I would love to see some of the money, for instance, spent on billboards being made available to grassroots global organizations.
There is a pollination project, isn't there? That's
that's
a kickstart. Yeah, and I think Veg Fund. I think it's changing recently. I think they're a lot more kind of tuned into what the grassroots needs. I was looking at their website.
They are good, but they're hard work. There's a lot of work, which is okay, but it's a lot of work, And I would love to see more people like Veg Fund. I have absolute respect for what they're doing. They're making it available. You can apply, but you know, it's this is the trouble. It's all work. It's work. It's a lot of work. But Veg Fund is standout. I had to say, well done, Veg Fund. We'd love to see more organisations like that. But I understand that it's a lot of work to give away money. It's a lot of work to make grant applications and make you know. Nella, what would you like to see for in Athens? What would you like to see? You know, what would be the big thing you think this year that?
I would wish for more local groups to become operational. Ideally, in every neighborhood, in every city, that would make a huge difference. And we would be capable of reach more people this way. So I would love to see that. And I would say that sometimes organizing something seems daunting, but we can always get in touch with more experienced activists, with all other organizers from different cities, even different countries, ask for their resources, ask for their help. It's my experience that in this movement, people are helpful and they will help you or put something together. So don't be shy, get in touch with other people and be active. I think that everything should be happening in a larger scale.
Okay, yeah. Hello, thanks for that. And Roger, just to wrap up, so we know funding is a big issue for Grassroots. Numbers, bodies, foot soldiers, if you like, is always a big thing. So what would you like to see particularly?
Well, I think it's a mixture of things. There's a lot of psychology here, as I suggested before, in the sense that there is this thing about, well, we need to follow, or you need to join a group, or you need to follow some model, this kind of stuff. Or even now, there are these kind of celebrity people that people seem to latch onto. And it's as though, well, I'm doing what I need to do by supporting them. Whereas really the strength of the Grassroots would be to say to people, well, I could do that. So I would say to people, just try stuff, so you don't have to follow a model. You don't have to be told what to do. You don't have to, there isn't a particular way of doing it. There's not a script. And so just try stuff and be experimental. If it doesn't work for you, I mean, it's going back to what you said, Tim, about lots of different things and lots of different people and lots of different skills. So there's no point in people trying to force themselves to do something they're not comfortable with. The best thing to do is look around and think, well, what can I do? What can I do? And then come up with a new idea as well. Think, well, that's not been tried. Let's give a go at that. Put it out on social media, your local groups, and say, look, I'm going to try and do this. That's exactly how Declan Bowen started 6.5 years ago with Vigo. He said on Facebook, I'm gonna be outside the bank. Anybody want to be there? In the first week, there's nobody there. The second week, some woman from England apparently turned up. And then now there's this, I mean, it's probably, I always say geographically, it's probably the biggest Grassroots event that happens on a weekly basis in the world now. It's absolutely huge, the place, and so it's really, really good. But it was a basis of things developed. He got himself a photocopier, he got himself this, and scrimped and scraped. Luckily, he already had a van and this kind of stuff to move all the stuff around. So you just end up getting things that you need, but you don't need to follow a model, and you don't need to be told what to do by some leader. Think for yourself. What do you want to do? What do you fancy? What would be great for you to happen in your area? If it's not there, do it yourself. It's a DIY culture,
DIY culture, self-preservation society. Thank you, Roger. That's brilliant. Cigars for applause. We're going to wrap up now. We've been talking for an hour and a half or so. I hope you found this useful. I certainly have. There's been great resources, very, very inspiring. We're going to take this a bit further. We're going to develop this kind of global activist thing with our new project, which we're going to announce on February the 14th, same time as the new Vegfest Morocco, Vegfest, the Moroccan website, the vegan Moroccan website comes alive. We'll be sharing that too. So just to say thank you. Well done, everyone. Well done. Keep going. This is really important times, you know. I'm slightly, what's the word? I'm slightly concerned that there seems to be a dip in enthusiasm for activism. You know, the pandemic has given us a lot of opportunities to really develop activism. I look at what you did last year, especially Simo. You know, why are more people not doing that? We need to see so much more of this. So I think, you know, the best thing to do though is to find something you really want to do and enjoy it, you know, because if you love doing it, you're going to do more of it and you're going to inspire other people to do more of it. So thanks to all the people, all the grassroots activists. You never get a shout out, you never get a thank you, you never get anything but grief or, you know, hard time. Thank you, folks. Well done. And thank you, Nella.
Thank you for having me. It was a great discussion. And thank you for putting all this together and dedicating a whole day to activism.
Oh, we love it. So thank you, Nella. And good luck to all your friends and colleagues in Athens and in Greece. And Simo, merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much.
C'est super bon, c'est absolument fantastique, c'est très inspirant.
Oh, he's showing off again.
I can't speak Arabic now, so, and I'm not going to do an Irish accent either, Richard, because, you know,
well, everybody's welcome to Dublin after the COVID, but you'll have to swim over because flying's not allowed.
Yeah, that's right. No more flying. I'll just psychically transport myself. That's a fairly easy way. On that note, Roger, thanks ever so much, and thanks for all the work you're doing online. It's really good. I see people taking note. People taking note, using you as a reference, actually. Even our good friend Gary Francione referenced you the other day. He said, Raj, oh, Raj, you there, Raj? You're still doing that? Damn. Wicked. So,
yeah. It made my day, that did, Tim. It made my day, that did.
Thanks a lot for joining us, and catch up for the next one. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.